Hey everybody, let's talk a little bit about the 4 laws of karma, because this is a word we throw around a lot, right? I used to have a tip jar on one of the boats I operated, and on the tip jar it said good karma, right? So let's talk about this word karma. Karma means action. Quite simply, it's action. And by that, it's neither good nor bad. It's just an action. What makes an action good or bad? Let's address that first, because a lot of times people talk about good karma and bad karma. So let's get into that first. Like, we've already defined what karma means. What is good? What is bad? Well, you remember from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra 4:15, Vastu Sanichita Beta Tayor Vivakta Pandaha. And it's one of my favorites. You hear me mention it a lot. It means that people will observe the same thing and it will mean different things to them, essentially, right? And this is a simplification of it. It means that you and I will look at something, the same object, very differently. If we use that as our touchstone for good and bad, we see that there's very few things that we're able to agree on, good and bad wise. And probably there's some things, right? I remember the other day, my wife, she was so happy because it was going to rain for 3 days. And I was sad because I want to go outside and I want to do things. And so, I know the rain is good for the plants, that's true, but for me, it wasn't a good thing, and for her, it was a great thing because she's worked so hard in our garden. So we have to understand that this good and bad idea is not helpful to us. It's really not helpful to get involved with this good and bad, this universal good and bad. It gets us into a lot of problems. And of course, this is for people that are interested in yoga, that are delving deeply into these things. If you're just dabbling and just kind of touching on things, then this is rather irrelevant to you. But if you are interested in the yoga and the yoga practices, then the concept of good and bad, you have to get rid of it. You simply have to. You have to leave it. And if you're not able to do that immediately, and it is hard, we could say, good for me and bad for me. That leads to other problems as well. So my recommendation is to, when you think about karma, think of it as neither good nor bad. It just is. It's the action. Let me give you an example. Karma would be if I pick up the cup and drop it, right? The karma is the cup dropped. Good or bad. Maybe bad for who has to clean it up. Maybe good for me if I didn't want what was in the cup. We don't have time for that. It's far too difficult to get into it, and we don't need it. So let's talk about karma as it is, as it exists. And that is simply an action, without going down the rabbit hole of good or bad. So what are these 4 laws of karma? Here they are. Karma is certain. Karma expands. If you do it, it will come back to you. If you don't do it, it won't come back to you. The first law, karma is certain. If we think of this as a purely physics, the science, we know things such as gravity, friction, they dictate things. And we know that these are physics, laws of physics, that these are natural laws that are not likely to change anytime soon, right? Now, even in space, there is still gravity. It's very little and reduced, but it's still there, right? So we could say that karma is a natural event. It's a natural thing. It exists in the world, and it is guaranteed. As long as we perform an action, something will happen. Now, remember that. If we perform the action, something will happen. Not good, not bad. Something. Just leave it at that, okay? How is this important to the yoga practitioner? Well, look, when you practice your yoga asana, for example, very simple example, and let's imagine I'm in downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. The word is inhale, take the right foot forward, rotate the back heel down, lift the prayer and torso, keep the front knee bent, Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1. What are all the actions? So all these actions had to happen in a specific order. From downward facing dog, you couldn't take the prayer and torso up. That wouldn't be good, right? That would not be cool. That is not what we want you to do in the yoga. So we have these sequences of events, and Master Patanjali talks about them later on in his Yoga Sutras, these sequence of events. And so important are these sequence of events, these sequences of actions, that we call them that, and we call them a name that is very similar to karma. We call it vinyasa krama, the sequence of events. And so what we understand is that yoga asana are a sequence of carefully laid out events, whether it's the teacher that planned the class, maybe you planned your own class, or perhaps you are following the directions of the teacher to inhale, take the right foot forward, rotate the back heel down, lift the prayer and torso, front knee is bent, Virabhadrasana 1. Because if you follow those specific instructions, only one thing can happen. Do you understand? That is so important. Nothing else can happen. You're not going to wind up in Warrior 2. You're not going to wind up in Urdhva Dhanurasana. You're not. If you drop the cup, it will fall. This is what we're talking about. Karma is certain. It's not up for debate. It doesn't need my belief nor understanding to be facts. I don't understand all the physics of gravity and friction, but I know that if I drop the cup, it works. I don't understand all the principles behind electricity, but I do know when I turn that switch on, my lights come on. Karma is certain. Now, what about karma expanding? Well, we talked a little bit about that, right? So we started to do some asana. We started by taking the right foot forward. That led to the back foot rotating down. It didn't have to. We could have kept it up, but then different things would happen, right? Because we changed our sequence, didn't we? We changed our sequence. Karma expands. So what does this mean specifically? Well, imagine this. Imagine I take the cup and I bring the cup to my mouth and I drop the cup on the ground. Well, the expansion of the karma is that, number one, the water expanded outside of the glass, but now some things have to happen. Well, the water expanded along the floor. Somebody's going to have to clean that up. I may need to clean it up. So let's imagine that I go over and I get a towel. And in the process of getting the towel, I stub my toe. Could happen, especially in my house. The toe stub came, in my mind, from the dropping of the water, from the dropping of the cup. Isn't it so? Makes sense. But wait a minute. Couldn't it have come from me pouring the water into the cup? But it could also have come to a little bit before that when I decided I was thirsty. But it could have come before that when I drank the water that was already... You see what I mean? If you're going to sit around and try and figure out why things are the way they are, you might be here a long time. Listen, I'm going to tell you, if you believe in reincarnation, you have lifetimes. Like, it's not even, we can't even conceive of it. And if you don't believe in reincarnation, it becomes, I feel, a little bit easier. Certainly, you have only this lifetime to see the expansion of karma. This is true. I think of all the things that brought me to sitting here. And it's quite literally, I'm 48 years old. I'm 48 years old. It's quite literally 48 years and 3 days, 6 hours, 324 minutes. You get what I'm saying. Everything, all the karma, all the sequences expanded to bring you to the point where you are now, but it's not finished. It's still going. You have the ability to direct it onto its next plane of existence, onto its next angle. You have that. It's like anywhere between taking your right foot forward, you could have changed the things that you do in that asana and come up with any number of things. You could have come up with high lunge by leaving your back heel lifted and raising your arms and not your prayer. You could have kept the hands down and hopped the back foot in ever so slightly, straighten the front leg, exhale, making it Parshvattanasana. The sequence was there, you just redirected it. You see, this is the purpose of our yogasana. There's a couple purposes, but this is a big one for us. To realize this immense power that we have, but also yoga tells us, my friends, there are no victims. And I know this is going to upset some people, and I understand that. But it's not me saying that. Yoga says that this is our karma, this is our sequence of events, these are the paths and things that we've chosen, whether in this life or another, at some point and somehow, in some way. Now, that's a little backstory on karma, law 1 and 2. Let's check out 3 and 4. If you do it, it will come back to you. It means that if I engage in an action and something happens, that something will expand back to me. I will feel the results of the action that I took. It reminds us that there are no faultless actions. Now, we may find that a wonderful way to embrace this is in our food choices, by choosing not to eat other beings, in our cosmetic choices, in choosing not to engage in the torture of other beings. And we may choose to adjust our actions so that we greet others with love and dignity and understanding, knowing that it's gonna splash back on us. Crazy, right? Yeah. That brings us to the 4th one. If we don't do it, it won't come back to us. This is pretty cool because I remember if I don't approach people with anger, it's highly unlikely they will approach me with anger. If they approach me with anger and I turn back with love and understanding, it comes back to me. If I don't engage in things, I don't feel the results of them. We have to be mindful of this because it's very easy not to act. And you want to read a little bit more about not acting, Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful book to read about this, because as you recall, Arjuna is on the battlefield. It is his swadharma, it's his destiny, let's say, is another way to look at that word, to get into this giant battle and to fight his friends and all these people who he cares about. And it's difficult for him. Like, he wants to get involved, but then he also doesn't want to get involved because he doesn't want to kill his friends and family. And Lord Krishna tells him that, you can't not do what you're supposed to do. It's not possible. So we can get very torn with this 4th part. And so one way you could look at it is, I could say, if I don't do it, it won't come back to me. Okay, I got it. So that means I'm going to try not to engage in gossip, right? Like, one place I worked, man, the character assassination. And listen, you got to admit, sometimes it feels pretty darn cool. I mean, it's something to talk about. You want to talk about this, want to talk about that one. And oh my God, the character assassination can get out of control. And I remembered trying to practice this idea of not engaging in gossip. And I would maybe I would open a book and start reading. I would always do something, whether it was removing myself physically or mentally from the gossip when it started in my general area. And the interesting thing happened is that people stopped talking about it near me. Now, I don't think for a second they stopped talking about it, but they stopped talking about it around. I found this true with adopting a vegetarian lifestyle, is that when I don't eat meat and people invite me over to their house, I've had some amazing meals from meaty people. They've made some amazing stuff for me, which is very kind of them. It's so wonderful and sweet of these people when they invite me to. And when I was before yoga, I can tell you now, I wouldn't have done that for them. I wouldn't have. I was, you don't want to eat meat? Bring your own food. I was not a nice person before yoga, man, I'm telling you. And these lovely people, when they know you're a vegetarian, they make you something nice. They make you a nice meal. So this is what he's talking about in that 4th one. If we don't do it, it won't come back to us. Yeah. So these are the 4 laws of karma. For a yoga practitioner, these are very important. These are incredibly important, because we start to realize that our whole lives are based on these actions and the repercussions of those actions, or failure to act and the repercussions of not acting. And this is one of the main purposes of our yoga asana practice. So I hope this helps. Let me know in the comments what you think.